So as you approach retirement, you will begin looking to supplement your Social Security and pensions with your 401ks and IRAs. The question is, how do you do it? Well, one of the options is an annuity. And there are many different types of annuities, some good and some bad. The one we're going to look at today is called an income annuity. And an income annuity works just like a pension for the most part. You're going to take a lump sum of cash and you're going to deposit it into an account. And there's some growth that happens there. But at one point in time, you will start an income stream from that account. Now, typically that income stream comes in the form of a percentage. Usually it's about 4.5% to 5%. And that's determined by your age. You see, the insurance company is trying to make a bet. Well, they don't want to pay you for the next 25 or 30 years. Or in other words, they want to pay you the least amount for the shortest amount of time while being fair, right? They have to make it an attractive offer for you. So the older you get, the more they will pay you because you're closer to death. That's just the way it works. Now, an income annuity can be great though, because if your account balance runs to zero, that insurance company made a promise to you that they will continue making those payments regardless of what the account balance is. Now, this is kind of a double-edged sword and you have to be careful. I'm going to walk you guys through the things you want to look out for. One of the things you need to be mindful of is that your real cash is separated from what they call an income base. There's two mechanisms at work here, the real money and what we call the income base. The income base is what they apply all of the guarantees to. So in other words, if you've got this account and in the future you change your mind that you don't want income from it for some reason, you're going to see a statement come in with some real big fancy number because they were guaranteeing you, say, 5% per year or whatever the market returns. So if the market returns 7, you can take that. If the market returns less than 5, you'll get 5%. But that's not applied to the real cash. And so further down those statements, and regulations have changed, they have to actually put the cash value or accumulated cash figure closer to the top of the statements now because clients were more focused in on the fake value versus the real cash value. But when you decide to leave, if you decided to leave that product because you didn't want the income, typically that number is going to be a lot lower. So I'm going to show you an example today of the things that you should look out for. Not that annuities are bad, they can be great for some folks, but the things that you should be looking out for when window shopping. One of the first things are fees, because your cash is separated from that income base, and that income base normally doesn't have a fee. You want to leave your beneficiaries, you want to put yourself in a place that the highest probability of leaving your beneficiaries or your spouse a remainder, a balance, an inheritance, what's left over from this account. If you have a high fee, some of these products can have fees as high as 3.5%, as we'll see here in a moment. That coupled with your withdrawals. So if they're going to pay you 5% per year and you have a fee of 3%, well, you're depleting your cash by 8%. If the funds in the account are only generating 4 or 5% per year, that cash is going to run to zero really fast. And when you die, there's most likely not going to be anything left for your spouse, your beneficiaries. So you want to make sure that fee is low, and you want to make sure that those funds have a rate of return that's equal to or greater than whatever that withdrawal rate is. That'll make sure that you have capital preservation in the account. You can get it if you look closely. So let's take a look at the statement so we can get an idea of how, this is kind of nice because this was bought 3 years ago, and so we're seeing something right here in action. We had an initial premium of $220,000, and that today is worth $255,000 after this last round of fees. Now the fees on this account are the ones I'm talking about that are rather high. So if I just open a calculator, let's do the math right here. Open a calculator. All we have to do is divide their strategy charge. That's there's all kinds of fees here. That is the fee assessed on the funds in which they're investing in this account. And sometimes that can be okay. This is pretty high. We have an income rider charge. That's for the lifetime income. And then we have a death benefit so that the spouse or beneficiaries are guaranteed some type of benefit. But if we add those all up, well, we know what the answer is here is 8905. But what I wanted to show you is that as a percentage. So it's 8906 if we round up, divided by the current account value, which is 255, 343, 39, say. And that right there is call it round up at 3.5% per year. Very high fee. So when this individual starts taking income, their income rate here annually is going to be about 4%. And I'll show you how to get there in a minute. But 4% plus their 3.5%, they're going to be depleting that cash by 7.5%. Now let's take a look while we're on the topic of fee. Since we know that we're going to be, since we know the annual cost of the account plus the withdrawal is going to be about, we said 3.5 plus 4, so 7.5%. If we look at the rate of return, the average rate of return over the last 3 years, and we assume that going forward, we'll see what type of capital depletion, at what rate our cash will be depleting. So we've got $220,000 is what we started with, and today we're at $255. We can do some pretty simple math there too. So let me open that calculator back up, and all we got to do is take the 255, 343. I'm going to leave the change out. 220,123, and that's $35,343. That's how much the real cash has earned over the last 3 years. Now all we have to do is divide that by the 255, 343, and that'll tell us how much, the 220, excuse me. It would be 255, 343 minus 220,123, and then that divided by 220,123. 16%, but that's not 16% per year. That's 16% over the past 3 years. So we divide that by 3 years, and our annual average rate of return is 5.33%. Now, our fee was 3.5, and our withdrawal rate is going to be 4. 7.5 minus 5.5. Our cash is depleting by 2% per year. Not a great situation to be in. Let's look a little bit further down at some of the other things this account promises. Now, here's the lifetime income rider. This right here is the amount that if this client decide taking income today, that's how much they would receive. So the question is as a percentage, how much are they going to be paying me from my cash if I started today? Well, we've got a $312,000 balance. Call it 313 if we round up, on the income base. This is the faux cash. This is the virtual money. This is what the guarantee is based on. So even though they've got 255 in real money, if they wanted to leave, they're not leaving with 313. That's going to be left there for income only. So you got 313. And by the way, that's one of the biggest misconceptions in our industry, and how a lot of advisors or so-called advisors or agents will allure clients, and you have to be careful. Most of the time when it comes to an annuity, this type especially, income annuity, you might be attracted by that guaranteed offer, that 5%, that 6%, some big bonus. But just be mindful that typically that's only if you keep that account and take income from it. That balance is tied to that withdrawal rate only. It's not something that you can leave with. Okay, so moving, and that's fine if you decide to stay and use it for income. That's great. Some clients, though, end up buying these products thinking I'm going to get 5% of my cash guaranteed, or whatever the market does, whatever's greater. And they'll find out down the road that that's not the case when they decide they want to leave, that the money's got to stay where it's at, and they've got to take an income or a withdrawal from it. That's the only way they can get access to that balance, that income base. Going back though, we've got 9806. They're promising us every year for the rest of our life. And so let's just take the 312 or the 9806 and divide it by the say just 313, round it up. So we've got a withdrawal rate right now at 3.13%. So they're going to give us about 3%, a little over 3% per year from our monies. That's the withdrawal rate. Now that looks a little better if we started now, because as we said earlier, the account is generating 5.33 per year. Our 3% plus the account fees is 6.5 now. So it's about a % less. So that helps there, but it's still, we're upside down. the account is still assuming capital depletion, and the probability of leaving the spouse or a beneficiary the remainder is relatively low over a 15, 20 plus year basis or timeline. Now, a couple other things to observe here is the income-based guaranteed. So this is normally what we look at. Some of this other hypothetical stuff can get away from us. What you want to do, first of all, is focus on the guarantees. And the guarantee in this account is 4.5%. So when this investor's money came into the account, it came in at 220, and it's been compounding at a minimum of 4.5% per year. Now, another thing we could do is figure out what's the rate of return been on the fake monies, on the virtual cash. And that's not hard either. We can do the same thing we did earlier, which is if we open a calculator, we can subtract the 312, 783, call it 84, minus the 220, and then we can divide that by the 220. So that's 42% over 3 years. So now we've done 14%, and that looks handsome, right? This is why people are attracted to the account, and that wouldn't be terrible. If 14% per year on the virtual money, you'll take 4% per year from that. That's not that bad. If you're trying to supplement your income, this could be a great way to do it. You'd have to really kind of forget about your real cash, and again, the probability of leaving your kids or your spouse an inheritance or a continuation benefit is very low, but it would produce a nice income for you down the road. Now, there are better ways to do this. There is a variety of products on the market, and so I'm going to show you guys one that's just a little different than this one here. It has lower fees. It has a higher annual rate of return. Actually, I should say, well, it's got a higher annual average rate of return on the real cash, and it has a higher guarantee on the income base, the virtual money. So I'm going to jump over there now. So here I have a recommendation, an alternative to what we just saw. It's a fixed index annuity. It's an income-based annuity. The difference here you're going to see is that this annuity provides a higher guarantee on the faux cash, right, the income base. It has a lower fee, and it has a higher probability of a greater return. So let's take a look at that. So on the second page, I'm not going to get into detail here, but we've got several different funds to choose from. The back office split this 50-50 on a 2 and a 1 year. We normally don't want this 2 year. I would have this changed before delivering it to the client to a 1 year. And the reason is because if the market comes down over the next year and it's lower on the anniversary date for this client, they can now buy in at that lower price. They haven't earned anything for the year, but if the market's down, it's down. And they'll lock in at that lower price. And now they'll take all the gains from that point up. Whereas if they're in a 2-year strategy and the market's down, they won't or will not have a reset at that point. So they're going to have to make their way all the way back up to where the investment was when they purchased it. And then only from that point and up will they have earnings. So typically a 1 year point to point is the better solution. Now I'm going to keep on moving down the page here. And let's see if we cannot find, so there is a surrender period. Almost all annuities that I have ever seen have a surrender period, 7, 10 years, sometimes longer, like that 12-year one we were looking at. Anything over 10 I think is a bit long. If it's for income, it may not matter because you're dedicating the cash to income anyway. So if the offer is really good and it has a longer surrender period, that's usually okay. Moving right down below, and by the way, this illustration, I'm trying to roll through as much of it as I can for you because technically we are supposed to walk clients through the entire illustration. You need to see it all. I'm attaching it below so you guys do have it. Please review that, now if you could, but just make sure to review it in addition to watching this video. So here we're kind of seeing some of the cash work for us. I wanted to bring you guys down to page 12. So our 9, 12. This is kind of cool where it shows us the combined rate of return of those two funds in a few different scenarios. First, best 10 years, and then worst 10 years and most recent 10 years. We focus on worst 10 years. That's typically the worst 10 years out of the last 20. So give us 20 years of returns, the past 20 years, and let's pluck out 20 of the worst, and then let's take an average of that. This is telling us 7.92. Now, honestly, we try and tell clients to be realistic. Let's shoot for 4 to 6%. Does say 7.92. A lot of that has to do with the fact that interest rates are up right now, and these products, the core is based on bonds or interest rates, bond rates, and so they tend to shine during higher interest rate environments. And so that's some of what we're seeing here. Usually 4 to 6% is a good average, and we've been able to hit that consistently. Now, comparing the two right off the bat, we see 7.92 versus the 5.33, you're in a better place. Even if we hit the high average of 4 to 6, we'd still be in a pretty good place. Even if we were to say this average is the same as that other product. Where the other product loses, in my opinion, is going to be to fees, because fees are certain. We're talking about 3.5%, we'll call it. The fee on this product is 1%. So you're pretty far ahead on the fees alone, because even if the markets stay bearish for the next 5-10 years, because we had this insane bull market, last 11-12 years have been phenomenal for everybody, it's likely for us to contract as the market goes through its cycles. Even if the market is down for the next 10 years, it'll be down in both accounts. And the other account will have a 3.5% drag on it. Cash will be depleting at a pretty quick rate, whereas you've only got 1% here. So we would win on this side. The cash would deplete at a much lower rate if, in fact, markets do not perform for us over the next 5-10 years or for however long. And so when comparing the two, though, if it was 7.92 less the 1% fee, the cash net is growing at, we're talking 6.92%. That would be phenomenal. And on the other side of things, we were at 5.33 minus 3.4 or 3.5. So you're only earning about 1.5 to 2%, that client in the other account. So another thing worth mentioning here is that if we're going to take and start income from these accounts, assuming they both give us 4% per year, well, 4 minus our 7.92 here, or I should say 4% is our withdrawal rate. We're going to take that from the account as income, so we're losing that in some ways. Plus the fee, 1%. Now we're at 5% from this account. If we can earn 7.92, we're still up 2.92. 5 minus the 7.92, or 7.92 minus the 5. We're up about 3% per year, and the cash would actually be appreciating. And our potential or our probability of leaving our heirs and spouse, the account balance or an inheritance is much higher. Whereas in the other account, we are only netting, 1.5 or so. That was after the fee. Once we start taking 4% from the account, we are a negative about 3% per year. So the cash is depleting pretty quickly. The other thing I wanted to share with you guys in this illustration was the guarantee rate of return on, so you see rider charge here, here's the 1%. That's the 1% fee that this account includes versus that 3.5 in the other. This is pretty sweet. You get a 9% guarantee. The other was not 4.5. 4.5, this is double at 9. There is one more piece of information there. That other account, the reason why it had a pretty high 14% annual average to date on the fake cash was because it had a multiplier. That is, if the market performed, they would 2x. They would take some of the monies and they would take the return and multiply it by 2 times. So you could actually do better than the 4.5% in the other account. Now, over the next 5 or 10 years, we don't know. If the market doesn't perform, you're only seeing the 4.5. Typically, when we're doing comparisons, especially on the income rider side of the account, we like to talk about what the guarantee rate is. And here it's 9% versus 4.5%, because we do not know what the future holds the next 5 or 10 years. And 9% is pretty good. At 9%, that account will double in, the account value would double. Well, the income base value would double here. And, what is that? By year 10, we've taken $287,000 to $625,000, and then we're taking an income for that, and we're getting that for the rest of our life. It's about $25,000 for the rest of our lives. So this does look pretty good. It's not a bad place to start. So anyways, that is the difference between this account and the other. Is the kind of some of the bigger focus here is going to be on your cash. You want to make sure that you have a good potential for upside. You want to have a low fee so that your spread between those two is higher. That's going to get the cash working for you and increase the probability of leaving your spouse a continuation benefit, or your beneficiaries an inheritance. And then secondly, on the income, we want to have the highest guaranteed fixed rate possible, or what they call roll-up here. And with those few things, I would say that this account would be a winner. I would recommend this account over the one the client currently has. So if you guys have any questions or want to learn more about income type annuities, if you think one might work for you, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I have a link below in all of our emails and anything we put on social media, and you can click in there and you can set a date and a time, and I can walk through a customized illustration for you to find out if lifetime income is something that would work. All right, thank you guys for tuning in.